West Denver. Sleep deprived and heavily caffeinated.
All right, let's do this then.
This is the Jeff and Bill Show.
I don't agree with that.
They don't always agree, but hey, at least they have coffee.
Coffee.
And each other.
I love you, man.
God help us.
I want to bless him. We need all the help we can get.
Now here's Jeff Hunt and Bill Thorpe. The Jeff and Bill Show on News Talk 710 KNUS.
The fellas got the rest of the week off. I'm Peter Boyles doing the show between now and Saturday morning, and the boys will be back on Monday. It is Tuesday morning, the 8th of July. Welcome to 710 KNUS, Denver's talk station, the morning show. 710 KNUS Weather Center weather. Woo, here we go again. Sunny, hot, 96 the high. Tomorrow's the record breaker, 100 degrees, and then on Thursday it is 95 degrees. We have a really good show, and, of course, Blake's going to be part of this in just 1 second. But yesterday we had some good conversations when Attorney General Pam Bondi is now facing some scrutiny, if you would, after this memo from the Department of Justice and said there's no evidence that the late convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein kept a client list or was murdered. Well, as someone said to me, nothing dies on the internet. I'm taking you back to December the 10th, 2021. An address book filled with Jeffrey Epstein's contacts. That's the opening line. One of the many small blue and black books where witnesses said he kept the names of the girls who gave him massages and his client list of friends. It is called The Little Black Book, and there's about 4 or 5 different stories I downloaded, and the Black Book exists. Now, here's a question for you as we bring in the Olson Report. What possible interest could the U.S. government have in keeping Epstein's client list secret? Ladies and gentlemen, let's hit the button for the Olson Report.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
Good morning, Pete.
Hey, my favorite morning sidekick.
Same here.
I yesterday you and I were having this conversation, and Pam Bondi comes out and says, "Look, there's no client list." So I started yesterday on the internet, and I'll just read you the opening line. Epstein's address book can be shown in court. Judge rules. This is December the 10th, 2021. The several black or blue hardcover directories, hundreds and hundreds of names, said Epstein and his staff, examining the book, recovered from the villas that they raided in Florida, recognizing many, 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 many names. Now, here's my question to you. What possible interest could the United States government have in keeping Epstein's clients secret?
Oh, that is a loaded question. I always go to the worst case scenario in this thing. Is there a chance of nuclear war if one of these things is exposed? Okay, that's number one. I realize it can go down the line and 100,000 different scenarios. But I think we all know the deep state is in control, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Whether it be here in the States, in Great Britain, in Israel, who knows, the most powerful, the wealthiest, and the most dangerous people in the world.
You ask yourself, is this also another example, perhaps, of or evidence of the deep state?
Yeah, it is.
The books listing the names. Maxwell's book proves to you that Maxwell is guilty. This is an argument made by Assistant U.S. Attorney Allison Moe, M-O-E, and this was in 21.
So here we go. We're 4 years removed.
And it doesn't exist.
And it does not exist.
And there's no video.
Nothing.
Let me read it. The books contained helicopter services, luxury hotels, global dining hotspots, naming 3 places in Manhattan that I've never been. It's the
Can't pronounce them.
No, it's this. Delmonico's is one of them. I know that one.
Yeah.
Tribeca Grill.
Okay.
And the
Smith and Walensky's? No.
Joe's Bar and Grill. And the CIPIANI, I guess another restaurant.
What?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Places that you and I would not be allowed in.
Absolutely.
But it is unbelievable that
it is.
they try and run that by you. There's no client list. There's. But my question, I wrote this down on the worksheet.
Yep.
What possible interest would the U.S. government have in keeping Epstein's clients secret? That's my open lines for the first hour.
I think it's the question of the century. I really do.
Yeah, I do too.
Because it's
is it interesting that these now suddenly Donald Trump gets reelected, Pam Bondi comes out and says the memo that's been released. Investigators say they found no incriminating client list. Well, hell's bells. There's there's apparently about 4 books.
Exactly. Hey, can I play you this? John Kuriakow, or I think that's how you pronounce his name. Former CIA. It's about 30 seconds. Here we go.
Sure.
I'm not blaming the FBI director, Kash Patel, or the deputy director, Dan Bongino. I think that layer beneath them, that's part of what we like to call the deep state, has taken this bull by the horns, and they've probably destroyed information. Look at what the CIA did in 1975 after Congress ordered that it release all of its files related to an operation called MK Ultra.
Yep.
The director of the CIA went back to headquarters and ordered everything to be destroyed. And in the end, only about 20% of the documents survived. We're still learning about the FBI's operations against Martin Luther King 55 years after the fact.
I mean, you talk about this stuff every day, and you've been talking about it for 50 years, probably.
MK Ultra,
that's
for that's this latest book, Chaos. But the books do exist.
Yeah.
Now, how can they dare say that?
That is the question.
Can I ask you one more sports question?
Yeah.
Do you think
Jake win the Super Bowl?
Sure. No, the Jake Paul fights.
Yeah.
They're going to sue. Did you see this?
No, I didn't see that one.
Here it is. They're suing. Remember they call them presenters in England. And Jake Paul.
Presenters.
Yeah, he's suing Piers Morgan.
Oh, I didn't see that one.
Yeah, because Morgan says those fights are rigged.
No way.
Way. Are Jake Paul's fights rigged? What do you think?
Oh, I think
yes.
I think yes.
Yes,
I think you have to say affirmative.
Yeah, the Tyson fight.
Yeah, I know.
Mike got $50 million.
Man, I wanted to see him just go to town.
Me too.
Oh, that's so disappointing.
Never threw.
And you and I were looking forward to it. So, I mean, we talked about it months before it happened. And then they disappoint us like that.
Mike threw, after the first round, Mike never threw another uppercut.
No.
That's Mike's punch.
And you're right.
That's the Sunday punch.
Absolutely. It would have done the job. Finished them off. We need to finish off the deep state like that.
But I'm telling you.
How can we do that?
Well, is what possible interest, this is Peter Boyles, would the U.S. government have in keeping Epstein's client list secret? And there's proof now. I mean, the internet never sleeps, right? But I'll just read you the first line. This is December 10th, 2021. The address books filled with Jeffrey Epstein's contacts.
Yep.
What do you think? Somebody's zooming somebody.
Absolutely.
All right.
They have dirt on each other. Everybody has dirt on everyone.
Yes. I mean,
and it goes back 10, 15, 20, 30 years.
Here's this one. There's text messaging already. They say there's no list. However, there is a flight manifest listing passengers' names.
True.
That's really interesting.
Absolutely. There are.
This next text. Come on, Peter. The only reason not to release is that Trump is involved. And then someone comes up with MK Ultra. MK Ultra is a very real deal.
Yeah, it is.
All right, sir. We have some news.
All right. Well, I appreciate it. Here we go. We'll continue to ask that great question. Appreciate it, Peter. News is presented by International Fellowship of Christians and Jews. Now is the time to stand with Israel. Call 800-301-1188. That's 800-301-1188. Or go to 710knus.com and click on the big red Stand with Israel banner at the top of the page. Our top story, a father's body was pulled from Chatfield State Park Reservoir on Monday near the swim beach. The man was paddleboarding with his two children when strong winds knocked them into the water. And you may have been in town when those winds started to pick up on Monday afternoon. The children have been rescued and were wearing life jackets. The man was not wearing a life vest. The death toll is now more than 100 after catastrophic flooding in central Texas. 56 adults and 28 children are dead, with 10 children and one adult still missing from the girls' camp in Kerr County. Hundreds of first responders are working in search and rescue operations. Colorado Task Force 1 will be assisting with recovery efforts. And Denver police say a child is in stable condition after falling 6 floors. It happened Monday in the Tamarack Family Shelter, which is operated by the Salvation Army. They say safety features were tampered with on the sliding glass door, allowing it to be opened. Police are investigating. The U.S. will be shipping more weapons to Ukraine. 47 made the remarks at a White House dinner with Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu. This comes after the administration paused some weapons shipments to Ukraine over concerns the U.S. military stockpile was being depleted. Netanyahu putting DJT up for the Nobel Peace Prize. He's praising his role in promoting peace and security, particularly in the Middle East. He made the announcement during a White House dinner last night, calling the award well-deserved. And President Trump plans to send more federal agents into sanctuary cities. Border Czar Tom Homan says worksite raids will also increase. This comes as the Justice Department sues the cities across the country over its sanctuary policies, of course, accusing officials of putting illegal immigrants ahead of American citizens. All right, news brought to you by Lair Fireplace and Patio, Denver's premier source for everything fireplace, patio, and grills, locally owned and operated since 1954, online at lairfireplacepatio.com. 67 in Parker, 68 in Lakewood, 70 in Denver, and the legend Peter Boyles in for Jeff and Billy this week. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Your KNUS forecast calls for upper 50s and low 60s to kick off this Tuesday here around the metro area. Temperatures heating up again today, and we are going to be in a hot weather pattern through Thursday. Also an overall dry weather pattern. Mid-90s today, near 100 degrees for highs Wednesday. Mid to upper 90s Thursday, lows the next few nights, low to mid-60s. 80s, scattered showers and storms Friday and Saturday. Weather sponsored by Colorado's Best Roofing, reminding you to protect your home from the harsh Colorado weather and schedule your free, no obligation roof inspection today at roofingcolorado.com. That's roofingcolorado.com. I'm meteorologist Mark Huer in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Good morning, everyone. Peter Boyles for the fellas. Tuesday morning, 96 the high, 100 on Wednesday, 95 on Thursday. Quick text. There's a lot of texting already. Peter, where's the injunction judge on Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, and Dan Bongino's big lie? I'm a fan, but Peter, it's just insane. I go with that as well. We'll start with Stephen. Stephen, you waited. Really appreciate it. Good morning. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, Peter. It's very nice that you're on this week.
Well, thank you.
Two things. I'll start with the first. In the Lindell case, I don't know if you saw this, the two attorneys for Lindell were fined $3,000 apiece for submitting AI briefs. They misquoted cases. They cited cases that didn't exist.
Yeah.
And they said it was a draft, and then when they filed the final, it included those errors and more.
Well, you remember why those guys got the job, because Lindell's original lawyers in Colorado say they're owed millions of dollars, and they asked to withdraw. And the firm is out of Minneapolis. They're called Parker Daniels LLC. And Lindell has run such a scam. I mean, he is, and now the lawyers got fined for generating, as you point out, generating lies. And so, but that shouldn't shock you when it comes to Lindell.
And then on the Pam Bondi Epstein thing, there's no need to look all around. There's a videotape that's been on every news channel of Pam Bondi saying, I have the client list on my desk.
Yes, I saw that as well.
And so that's kind of hard to run from.
Well, there's several questions, I think, and I wrote on my worksheet, what possible interest would the U.S. government have in keeping the Epstein client list secret after we know it exists?
I think a couple. I think people in the administration obviously could be involved. Even though if Trump did not do anything wrong, it's embarrassing to him. The other thing is contributors, high dollar people that contributed to
that was players. Trump. That was Players and Sugar. It wasn't.
And then the other one would be allies. What if Epstein, was used, to entertain people from other governments that are friendly to us, or lobbyists, or anything like that? The net exceeds far beyond the U.S. government.
It's always been alluded that he was he was a Mossad agent. It's always been alluded that he's been wore these different hats. But for the folks that are just waking up, it started when the AG and Eric, the texter, is right. I mean, watching Kash and watching Pam and watching Dan Bongino, they're lying. I mean, I don't think there's any doubt. Well, there's evidence that they're lying, and the address books. with Epstein's contacts, I have a lengthy piece from December 10th, 2021, that there was more than one book, in fact. And so what is this? Is it evidence of the deep state?
Well, I think the administration had to make the call on this. They're not going to listen to the deep state. I don't know if you ever read James Patterson's book about Epstein, but his entire story is so bizarre.
Incredibly.
I mean, people that can really investigate were never able to find the true source of all his money. I mean, it's just a crazy thing.
I think I read that same book, but he was a math teacher in a private school, and one of his students' fathers IDs him as the story that they sell. But it's like the Jackson 5, the story is that Diana Ross discovers the Jackson 5. Well, that was anything but the truth, but they invented that story to put the Jackson 5 over. Now that's above boards, and it's what it is. But when remember there was a woman called the Hollywood Madam. Her name was Heidi Fleiss.
Oh yeah,
and she had a little black book. I spent some time reading last night, and that revealed that politicians and celebrities were among her clients. And then I know in Players and Sugar the great fear of the client list of Players and Sugar. And you got to believe, and again, back to this now broken record question, what possible interest would this administration have, because these are appointees of the administration, in keeping Epstein and actually inventing things about, for instance, the video. Remember, there wasn't any video, and now there's video.
Oh, I see, yeah. Well, that all these, whatever administration there is, there's these, this goes back forever, there's the super powerful friends. Vernon Jordan for Bill Clinton.
Sure.
I'm sure Trump has a group of people around him that are, bone tight, and he doesn't want to embarrass them. They have a resource to millions of dollars, maybe connections. There's always, what if we're protecting some great allies or great lobbyists? Or, I'm sure Prince Andrew didn't want that to get out.
Oh, my heavens. Bill Gates.
Gates is an example.
Allegedly, that's why Mrs. Bill Gates got rid of Bill Gates, was because of his contacts with Jeffrey Epstein. And, Bill, I don't know the private life of Bill Gates, but if you're hanging with Jeffrey, that there's at least some of your hanky and your panky going on.
There's a thing on the mall now. There's an exhibit somebody put in there that has that tape of Trump at that party with Epstein, where he's younger and his hair's a lot longer, and he's making these dance moves with Epstein and whispering in his ear and making him laugh. And that's just playing on a loop on the mall.
So now what? Will this go to ground, or will something come out of it? And again, this is this idea of throwing yourself on the fire. There are people now that are obviously telling stories that aren't true, and they're doing it to protect whom?
Well, somebody powerful, and I think they talk about Reagan being Teflon. Trump is Teflon. My goodness. So they're just going to say, this is it. This is behind us. Let's focus on tariffs. Let's look at Israel. And MAGA's going to roll with them.
Yeah, this whole thing now is, and again, Netanyahu's here, or was, and nominates Donald Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize. And we have coming in studio this morning, Palestinians, Dr. Rima Wadan comes in. And there's a really bizarre story that has me scratching my head. one of the former members of Pink Floyd. Have you seen this story? His name is Roger Waters, and he's a former Pink Floyd songwriter. And this weird, and I don't know anything about rap groups, but there's a group called Bob Villain, like a takeoff on Bob Dylan.
Oh, yes, I heard a pro-Palestinian song.
Yeah, that's right. And he posts this video after the government in Great Britain outlawed, they called it Palestinian action, meaning support or membership in a group is now a criminal offense. In a video that I saw parts of it, the campaign against anti-Semitism, well, Palestinians are Semites. And Waters says this is Independence Day, July the 5th, 2025. He said, I declare my independence from the government of the UK that has just designated Palestinian Action as a proscribed terrorist organization. Now, this in our country, we have the First Amendment that is being diminished. And oftentimes I've said the First Amendment remains because of the Second. That there seems to be, there's a layer of things going on with that story. And
are the people you know and have on your show, the Palestinians, do they ever concern themselves about their safety in this country?
I'll ask, but she's a physician, and I've been around her now about a year, and I take her at her. I think she's very extremely bright. Obviously, to get through med school, and she loses family members in Gaza. I don't know how that's going to end. The ceasefire is allegedly going, or at least going to be moved ahead. We can only hope. But in the case of the Israelis and the Palestinians, that ceasefire is momentary in terms of the history of the world. That won't hold. I don't know. I don't have those answers. But
I've listened to you and the doctor talk before on your Saturday show,
yeah,
and she is very impressive.
Way impressive. All right, sir, we're on the way.
Take care of yourself.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. 303-696-1971. It's a Tuesday morning, July the 8th. I'm Peter Boyles. I asked this question. I was floored by and again, these men that I've really honestly given much respect to, and now all of a sudden I think that they've put their reps up. Now there's got Pam Bondi, then Kash Patel, and Dan Bongino. Bongino used to do the radio show with us, and they sat there and they lied about the existence of an Epstein client list. Well, there's overwhelming evidence that there's a client. There's books. And then remember, there wasn't any video at all, that the cameras were turned when Epstein was in his cell. And now there's no question he committed suicide. I believe he was murdered. And I certainly am not alone. Another quick, and then we'll break. There are so many unknowns with this guy. One question keeps coming up in my mind. Is it illegal to fly on Epstein's plane? Is it illegal to be a client? That's great, legitimate questions. But it's the taint of going with a guy who's clearly a pedophile. All right, 96 will be the high, 303-696-1971. Lines are open. What do you make of all of this? And is it evidence of a deep state? I asked that question about the Iranian bombing. 710 KNUS, I'm Peter Boyles. Your calls are coming up. Morning again, everyone. Peter Boyle's in for the fellows. They're here next week. It's Tuesday, 96 the high today, and then 100 on Wednesday, 303-696-1971. Interesting, the messaging this morning coming in on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. That's 720-819-5115. The weapon, and this is really good, is again, Peter, I'm afraid that the weapon the Democrats can campaign on is what the hell is President Trump thinking? Wow. Email or text message. I never thought I'd message you, but this is a definite change in behavior. Epstein, a conspiracy after the election, is honest notice. They found a bunch of driver's licenses printed in China. The virus is natural. I think that's been much disproved. I always figured you as a CIA asset. Oh, my God. Okay. You send them in, I'll read them. A CIA asset. Whew. This story out of Great Britain, and it's about a rap group called Bob Villain. And they performed, let me make sure I got my notes, it's Glastonbury, I think, is the name of the festival that they performed at. And yeah, Glastonbury Festival, Bob Villain. And they're rapping, shouting, death, death to the IDF. Now, that's the Israeli Defense Forces. And Roger Waters, one-time Pink Floyd member, says he backs them. Now he's facing criminal prosecution in England or in Great Britain for even saying that. I'll read this first line to you. Former Pink Floyd songwriter Roger Waters could face prosecution after declaring support for Palestinian action. And why don't we play, this is Bob Villain. I've watched this video a couple of times. I think we could clear it for airplay. So, Adam, if you would, Bob Villain performing in the Glastonbury Festival, Worthy Farms in Somerset, England. Here we go.
Free, free. Alright, but have you heard this one though? Death, death to the IDF. 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 Hell yeah, from the river to the sea, Palestine must be, will be.
See?
Inshallah, it will be free.
Inshallah meaning God's will. That was enough. And what do you do with that? 303-696-1971. What do you do with that? And one of the things in studying the life of Jefferson and the Constitution of the United States and the framers, the First Amendment that I've lived with the First Amendment, lived because of the First Amendment for 51 radio years. And the First Amendment doesn't protect what you like. The First Amendment protects what you don't like. And it's a really interesting mindset that the First Amendment isn't there for things that you like. It's there for the things you don't like. And when again, things are quite different in Great Britain, but they're changing here. We know that because of the political correct and the left and the courts. Masterpiece Bakery is a classic example of people not liking what some man does, and so they can come in after him. The government comes after him. Now, we all like to support Jack Phillips, but would you all like to support Bob Villain? And the answer is, well, I don't like Bob Villain. But what about their right to say it? What about Bob Villain, that you just heard? And the part of it is Not that Roger Waters is singing it or wrote it, but just said he supports it. And now he may be prosecuted in Great Britain. 303-696-1971. If you watch this stuff, you have to be very, very slow and very, very deliberate. So, again, I looked at this last night. I was up pretty late, for me, pretty late, reading all this stuff about the Epstein books. And I come back to Players and Sugar. I come back to Heidi Fleiss, the Hollywood Madam. And she had this little black book that had the names of politicians and celebrities among her clients. And they became the subject of intense interest. And the Epstein scandal now, and I read this, and here are these people that I have admiration for coming out, and they're clearly lying. I mean, they're just flat lying about Epstein's death and Epstein's address book. Why? And does this say to you, and again, I thought this was the significant question, and the lines are wide open, what possible interest could the United States government, because these three are tops of the shop in the United States government, what possible interest would the U.S. government have in keeping Epstein's client list secret? I knew what the media in the city of Denver had in keeping the Players and Sugar list. It is very powerful, and what those men, and I suspect, I don't think women, but men were able to do with that list. From text messaging, Trump will save America from foreign Muslims. Well, but I again, just watching this and watching them come out and shoot a memo about the late convicted pedophile. He's not just a sex offender, man. The dude was he was a ped, and he kept a client list, or was murdered. And the government says, oh, no, that wasn't true. There's no incriminating client list. The hell there isn't. There are a couple of books of his list. Now, where are they? Where are the books now? That's a great question. I don't know. But the sex offenders network was much bigger. And the database must be staggering. Pete and Monument. Hey, Pete, you're on the radio show. Good morning and thank you.
Good morning.
Morning, sir.
Hey, Pete, I think that the big question that needs to be asked here is what got Trump and his cabinet, Bondi, Bongino, Patel, what has scared them or gotten to change their mind? To me is the
great question.
That is the quintessential question, and the only thing I can think of is that this is somehow a Mexican standoff where one side has a gun pointed at the other side's head, and that person has the gun pointed at the other guy's head. And you ruin me, I ruin you type of deal. But you asked a question, is this proof of a deep state? And I think the unequivocal answer is yes. And I don't think this is I think you can go back before Kennedy was assassinated, and sure. What we've learned about Kennedy and what we've learned about some of these other government operations, you read the book Chaos, and you realize that the government is so involved in trying to manipulate the way people think, the way people process. I don't know if I can fathom how deep this goes.
Well, you're asking maybe a better version of the question I wrote down, is what possible interest would the U.S. government have in keeping the Epstein client list secret? And it was too. I mean, it's too late. But maybe, like you point out, people realize that the long train is coming, and also when that Donald Trump has been reelected, and now is he in the eye of the storm? What do you think?
Well, what I think is that this is the type of,
and it's more than that. They I mean, think of the names. We know the names of some of the people that went to the island. But
just look at Prince Andrew. I mean, what kind of power does that family wield throughout the world?
Oh my heavens! The British royals.
So and this has got all the earmarks of a blackmail, deep state, and let's say intelligence agencies around it. There's no doubt about it, and that this was probably created and used to manipulate really powerful people into doing thing and carrying out certain wishes of really powerful people.
One of the things I was able to read last night, and I don't know that it's true, that they say the book is 92 pages, collection of typed contacts put together by Maxwell Epstein. Names and phone numbers of more than 1,000 celebrities, politicians, titans of business, including Prince Andrew, Alec Baldwin, Tony Blair, Michael Bloomberg. I mean, now, does that mean that they went on the Lolita Express and went to the island? I don't know. Does that mean that they went to the parties? I don't know. But they're in the book, or allegedly in the book, and so could you see why? I know. I say this. I believe that phone calls were made in the city of Denver after we broke Players and Sugar, and I believe that the phone calls were made to media outlets, and they were, and it wasn't that this Michael Hancock, this young kid who had been a city councilman, had just become mayor. I don't think that has anything to do with it. I think it had to do with what powerful men, athletes, perhaps team owners, powerful interests, how many of them were going to Players and Sugar for fun and excitement? And they didn't.
Let me ask you a question, Pete. One of the things I've always thought about is if we really want to change the way this country thinks about politics, and if you want to, for lack of a better term, unite a lot of people that see differences, is you have to shock the American psyche. You have to have people so upset about what the powerful, the rich, the elite, the politicians have done that they somehow come together. And this is one of those things that I can see happening if the Trump administration have the courage to actually lay it all out there, and they probably burn a lot of their own bridges, possibly.
Or possibly,
one of those type of things.
Are they giving themselves up?
That's what I'm saying. Now, I don't think Trump was involved. I don't think Kash Patel was involved. But are you taking down big donors? Are you taking down friends for the last 30 years? Are you taking down people who have advised you? I don't know. My guess is probably yes. This is a game changer if you can get it out there.
This is a great call, Pete. I firmly believe that Epstein had to be silenced. He had to be.
Well, he claimed he was going to be killed.
Yeah, no, I know. He knew, the man who knew too much. And the only other two stories I know, one I partially lived, the Players and Sugar story, but that Hollywood madam, Heidi Fleiss, remember she kept the little black book and had all the politicos in it and celebrities in it. And this is far more, I say, dangerous because of these guys weren't the guys in Denver, from everything I understand, and I spent time with Scotty Ewing, who owned it. You know, they were coming there for R&R, and or they were bringing a client or and the same thing with Heidi Fleiss. But I think the Epstein stuff goes into the world of power and politics. And I think that's what makes Epstein far more dangerous.
Well, the golden question is, who is pulling his strings? Who controlled Epstein?
You bet. No, I mean, is it evidence of the deep state?
Unequivocally.
Great call. Well thought out. Theme from Rocky, 303-696-1971. I'm Peter Boyles in for the fellas, 710 KNUS. All right, it's Tuesday. I'm Peter Boyles in for the fellas, Jeff and Billy. 710 KNUS, the 8th of July. 96 the high, 100 degrees tomorrow. This is another very interesting text. Peter, if it wasn't for the loss of life in the Texas flood news story, Jeffrey Epstein's story would be by far the biggest news coverage story on the wire in the world. You know, not on talk radio. Not on talk radio. Not on talk radio. They won't go near it. As you know, what I've said about what's happened to talk radio, there's a sadness here that is not reversible, at least won't be for quite a while. No. I mean, do you think that these folks who are manning the microphones now and talk radio are going to do this story? The answer is clearly no. They're not going to go near it. And that's the other sadness. And the Epstein address book does exist, and 3 members of this administration have come out. And remember, there was a great joke that you heard probably as a young person, where the punchline is, what do you want to do, believe me or your lying eyes? Remember that? The guy comes home, or woman comes home and catches her husband, or the other way around, catches his wife, and the husband gets up, woman leaves the house, he makes the bed, puts his clothes on, turns around to the missus and says, what are you talking about? You want to believe me or your lying eyes? And this is what Pam Bondi is asking you to do. Do you want to believe me or do you want to believe your lying eyes? Well, and don't expect talk radio to do this story. Just don't. If you're looking for that, believe me, it isn't going to happen. And actually, some of the other outlets will run from this as well. But Dr. Rima Wadan's coming in studio, and there's a ceasefire proposal, and we'll talk about the war in Gaza. And last night, Benjamin Netanyahu said that he was going to put Donald Trump up for the Nobel Peace Prize. So a lot to learn, isn't there? So the address book that of Epstein's contacts that we're told doesn't exist clearly exists. The evidence, the pictures of it exist. And we're told by people that I had respect for that doesn't, or there's no incriminating client list. Then what in the 5 times of these books? 710 KNUS. We close to a turnaround here. Pull the pin. 710 KNUS on a Tuesday. I'm Peter Boyles. Please stay right here.